vielleicht nur aus dem Ausland.
Months after the 68 Grammy Awards, the Dalai Lama formally received his first ever Grammy Award at his residence in Dharamshala. Sarod Maestro Ustad Amjad Ali Khan, along with his sons Aman Ali Vangash and Ayan Ali Vangash, arrived at his residence to present the award. Dalai Lama won the award for collaborative album titled Meditations, the reflections of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, in the Best Audiobook, Narration and Storytelling Recording category. Hello and welcome. I'm Kripa and this is another edition of Inside South Asia.
Our ties with India in entertainment, go far deeper than just business. They are rooted in, shared culture and storytelling tradition.
At least 21 people, including 12 foreign nationals, died after a massive fire broke out at a budget bed and breakfast hotel in South Delhi's Malviya Nagar on Wednesday morning, in one of the capital's deadliest blazes in recent years. The cause of the fire is yet to be ascertained. The fire started from the eatery located at the basement and soon engulfed the 5-story building. The fire broke out around 8:30 a.m. at Flourish Stay B&B in the Hosrani area, a densely populated locality popular with budget travelers and medical tourists. Among the dead were 12 foreign nationals. The dead include 4 Nigerians, 2 nationals from Kyrgyzstan, 2 from Mozambique, and 1 each from Liberia and Uzbekistan. Now, according to authorities, 8 Bangladeshi nationals, 2 Nepalese were also among the injured. Well over 12 hours after the incident, the owner of the Delhi hotel, Lavkesh Bajaj, has finally been arrested. Police have registered an FIR on grounds of culpable homicide under the relevant sections.
After the incident broke out, a lot of locals rushed to the spot to help people jump out of the windows and save as many lives as they could before all the agencies, including the fire department, got here. When the agencies arrived at the place, they were able to rescue around 40 people, but still we have many who suffer various magnitudes of injuries, most of which is asphyxiation. Now, nearby hotels also have a similar scene unfolding, because this entire lane behind me and other lanes in this entire region have similar bed and breakfast structures which are flouting rules in terms of what they are permitted to establish, in terms of the number of rooms, in terms of fire safety and other such rules and regulations that have been overlooked in many, many years. This incident now brings the spotlight back on how this entire administration, how authorities will now react to this entire instance, what kind of protocols will now be established all over again, and what sort of implementation do we see at this point. With video journalist Piyush here in Malviya Nagar, this is Dharmjot Kaur for WION World is One.
Pakistan deportation drive has forced hundreds of thousands of Afghans to return home in recent months as relations between Islamabad and Kabul continue to deteriorate. In a tragic incident, at least 22 Afghan refugees lost their lives when a truck carrying families that were returning from Pakistan overturned in eastern Afghanistan. The accident has once again highlighted the perilous conditions facing displaced Afghans as they make their way back to their homeland.
After days of uncertainty, exhaustion and hardship at the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, a group of returning Afghan refugees met a devastating fate before they could finally reach home. What was meant to be the last leg of a difficult journey turned into a nightmare when a truck carrying Afghan nationals deported from Pakistan overturned in Afghanistan's eastern Laghman province. The vehicle, packed with families and their belongings, was traveling along the main highway connecting Kabul with neighboring Nangarhar province. The truck reportedly lost control, veered off a high embankment and overturned, trapping passengers beneath the wreckage.
It was around 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. When we crossed the Sorkano bridge, I think the driver had fallen asleep and the vehicle went off a high embankment and crashed down. After that, we lost consciousness and we found ourselves lying underneath the vehicle.
Authorities said that by the time rescue teams reached the location, 22 people had lost their lives, including 10 children and 5 women. Another 36 people were injured, several of them critically. The victims were part of a growing wave of Afghans being forced to return from Pakistan as the country intensifies its campaign to deport undocumented foreign nationals.
Unfortunately, the truck transporting the returnees was involved in a collision on the way. The family consisted of 9 brothers. Tragically, one of the brothers, along with his wife and children, lost their lives in the accident. The truck was carrying the family's belongings as well as approximately 60 passengers.
The mass return comes against the backdrop of increasingly strained relations between the South Asian neighbors, Pakistan and Afghanistan. Amid worsening ties, Islamabad has ordered Afghan nationals without valid documentation to leave the country. According to figures from the UN Refugee Agency and the International Organization for Migration, more than 447,000 Afghans have returned from Pakistan since the start of 2026. As deportations gather pace, thousands of refugees have found themselves stranded at border crossings, often waiting days for permission to re-enter Afghanistan. At the center of this movement is the crucial Torkham border crossing, one of the busiest gateways between the two countries. Although the crossing was reopened for returning refugees months ago, the slow pace of processing has resulted in lengthy delays. With few affordable transport options available, many refugees are forced to undertake the journey in overcrowded commercial trucks. The tragedy in Laghman has highlighted the dangers that accompany this mass movement of people. Also, the continued disruption at border crossings has affected businesses and local communities on both sides of the frontier. Frustrated refugees waiting to cross have repeatedly appealed to authorities to speed up processing and keep routes open so they can return home without further hardship.
When there is war, ordinary people suffer. We ask both sides to pay serious attention to civilians during the fighting.
The deportation campaign launched by Pakistan has uprooted countless Afghan families who had built homes, livelihoods, and communities across generations. Now, as they return to Afghanistan, they face an uncertain future in a country that for some is no longer familiar.
On May 27th, Penpa Sering was sworn in for a second consecutive 5-year term as president of Tibet's government in exile. As the community navigates its future, attention now turns to the increasingly central question of succession.
Surrounded by red-robed monks, the rhythmic beat of ceremonial drums and the measured cadence of ancient prayers, Penpa Sering took his oath in the foothills of Himachal Pradesh in India.
So even in the case of Tibetan government in exile, they always say, Tibetan government in exile is not recognized by any government in this world. But legitimacy does not come only from international recognition.
The 90-year-old Dalai Lama was also present, bringing spiritual weight to this moment of transition as the community prepares for a future without his direct institutional role. The 58-year-old Sering secured victory in the presidential contest in February, winning 61% in the preliminary round, enough to clinch the mandate outright. First elected in the Tibetan parliament in exile in 1996, he served as speaker from 2008 until his election as president in 2021. He has since led the Central Tibetan administration from its base in Dharamshala and now begins another 5-year term. Formed after the 1959 uprising and the Dalai Lama's fight from Lhasa, the Central Tibetan administration comprises executive, legislative and judicial branches. The Tibetan Parliament in exile meets twice a year and has 45 members. Of these, 30 represent the traditional provinces of Tibet, 10 represent the major Buddhist religious traditions, and 5 represent the global Tibetan diaspora. The February vote marked the 4th direct election of the exile leadership since the Dalai Lama formally stepped back from political authority in 2011. Now, many Tibetans feel a growing urgency to support elected leadership for their future.
Now, in our speech today also, we have requested the Tibetans inside Tibet, starting from household, to keep the Tibetan language and culture and religion intact. And that's exactly what China is doing with the ethnic unity law, which is a very positive name to all these things, but it's very destructive in nature because it has the whole idea of this legislation is to destroy Tibetan or other nationalities' identities.
Beijing, however, maintains that it must approve the Dalai Lama's eventual successor, whereas the Dalai Lama and the Central Tibetan administration insist that the Tibetan people themselves have the sole right to determine their spiritual leadership. It is to be noted that the Dalai Lama is regarded by Tibetan Buddhists as the 14th reincarnation of a spiritual lineage dating back to 1391. The Dalai Lama has been living in India ever since the 1959 Tibetan uprising. Looking forward, Tibetans in exile remain determined to preserve their identity, culture and voice, even as questions of leadership and succession continue to loom large.
It is a big year for Nepali cinema. For the first time ever, a feature film from Nepal has won a major prize at the prestigious Cannes Film Festival. The country bagged the jury prize in the Uncertain Regards section for director Abinash Bikram Shah's haunting debut feature titled Elephants in the Fog. I caught up with the filmmaker earlier after his grand win at Cannes. Let's listen into what he has to say about this cinematic breakthrough.
Nous décernons le prix du jury à Abinash Bikram Shah pour son film Les éléphants dans la brume.
Welcome to WION The World is One, Abinash. It's a proud moment. Your film was the only South Asian title in the Cannes Film Festival lineup this year. Did you feel that responsibility coming in with representing not just Nepal, but an entire region, the South Asian region, on a stage like Cannes?
Yeah, actually it felt both like an honor and also some kind of weight. You know, the global industry is already familiar with Indian films, like both Bollywood and independent cinema. And because of that, when you are the, lone representative of the rest of the region, our region, there is a temptation for the world to, compare your work to the Indian cinema, rather than viewing it as a singular, piece of cinema or Nepali cinema. So my responsibility was to resist that, not to compromise on our specific, local grammar, language and geography, that just to make it easily, digestible for Western audience.
The South Asia region often celebrates its tradition and spiritual openness, yet queer communities across the region, they still face deep exclusion.
Actually, for me, the elephant and the transgender identity and village, they all share the same existential pain. They struggle for displacement and belonging. Both the elephant and LGBTIQ community are being pushed to the margins. And as the forest shrink due to this encroachment, the elephant wander into the human settlement, desperate to find a home. And we met with the fear and violence, and same goes with the character Pirati, who comes from a Kina community, a trans woman and a community, and they also wonder the edges of the society, that refuses to grant them space.
You insisted on casting transgender artists from the community itself, despite the obvious challenges. Authenticity over trained actors. Why?
To cast from the community, it's very important for me because I'm not from the community, and I want to make a film as authentic as possible, and that is why the performers, the chosen, the actors, the character that I chose, they brought their own histories, their instinct and their collective, resilience into the film, into the frame. When the camera look into their eyes, it isn't actually capturing their performance. It's capturing their presence.
Speaking of stories, Abinash, I'd like to know how you see India-Nepal ties in the field of entertainment that tells the most stories, because an influx of Nepali songs is being witnessed in Hindi entertainment industry. They are being remixed, reprised. Will we also see Nepali films being remade here? Do you fancy that idea?
Oh, yes. Our ties with India in entertainment, go far deeper than just business, They are rooted in, shared culture and storytelling tradition. And we share, same geographic, like we talked before, and human realities, like my film is based in Tarai landscape, and it's it's nearby the India border. They speak, Bhojpuri there. And it's so similar to India, We are also very keen on, distribute our film, this Elephants in the Fog in India as well. Maybe, not just remake, maybe the same film with English subtitle, maybe.
Mount Everest, the world's highest peak, has long drawn climbers from around the world into its icy slopes. And this season, however, it has stood out as a record-breaking one, marked by an exceptional surge in traffic on the mountain. As the season comes to an end, concerns are deepening over overcrowding and its implications for climber safety, along with pressure on the fragile high-altitude environment.
Climbing the world's highest mountain has long been a defining dream for experienced mountaineers around the world. For some viral to defining moments to even capturing an avalanche, welcome to the 2026 Everest season. This year, that dream attracted even more people than usual, as Nepal's southern route on Mount Everest witnessed one of its busiest seasons on record. Each spring, hundreds of climbers and their Sherpa support teams attempt to reach the 8,849-meter summit. But this season stood out for one reason above all: sheer numbers. Everest, which straddles the Nepal-China border, can be climbed from Nepal's southern route or Tibet's northern face. When Chinese authorities closed access to the northern side, many expedition teams redirected their plans to Nepal, swelling traffic on the already popular southern approach. On the Nepal side, expedition tents, support staff, and climbers filled the base camp in the last week of May, creating a dense temporary settlement at the foot of the mountain.
This was my sixth time reaching the summit of Mount Everest. Compared to my previous summits, this experience was completely different because there was much heavier traffic this time. On May 20th alone, 274 climbers summited Everest, according to the official list that came out.
This year, Nepal issued a record 494 permits to foreign climbers. And now the official climbing window, which began in March, is now closed as the monsoon approaches. After that, all climbers must descend as Himalayan weather deteriorates, bringing dangerous conditions, heavy snowfall and unstable terrain. This season began amid concerns after a serac collapse disrupted part of the route. But Nepal's climbing teams quickly restored access by establishing an alternative passage.
This was a historic ascent, although there were doubts about this year's expedition due to the serac. However, it later became a splendid success, and this season also saw a longer weather window.
On May 28th alone, an estimated 275 climbers reached the top, marking one of the busiest single-day ascents ever recorded of the southern route. Preliminary estimates suggest that more than 950 climbers have already stood on the summit till now, though final figures will only be confirmed after official verification. If confirmed, the season would surpass the previous record of 872 ascents set in 2019, according to Guinness World Records. High on the mountain, climbers were seen moving in long queues through the death zone, where oxygen levels are too low to sustain human life for extended periods. These scenes once again raised questions about overcrowding on Everest, particularly during the brief weather windows when multiple teams attempt their summit push at the same time.
It was very crowded this year on Everest compared to last year because there were more clients. There is a need for authorities to control this number.
The season also coincided with International Everest Day, observed annually in Nepal to commemorate the first successful ascent of Everest in 1953 by Sir Edmund Hillary and Indian Nepalese climber Tenzing Norgay. This year's celebrations in Kathmandu marked the 73rd Everest Day. It also marked the official end of the climbing season. Nepal's tourism minister, Khadak Raj Paudel, honored several climbers for their achievements on the mountain. Flagging growing environmental concerns, Minister Khadak Raj Paudel said that rising global temperatures pose a serious threat to Mount Everest.
The Everest and other mountains are in danger with the rise in global temperature. The glaciers are slowly melting. Those aboriginals of the high Himalayas are at risk. Not only them, but the entire population of Earth living along coastal areas are at risk of sinking, and water resources are drying up.
With the Everest routes now effectively closed, the record-breaking crowds have officially again highlighted the growing challenge of balancing access, safety, and sustainability on the world's highest peak.
After a 4-day delay, the southwest monsoon has set in over India's Kerala, marking the beginning of rainy season. Take a look, and I will see you next week.
this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION, World is One.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world.